Hi, everyone. My name is Lisetta Hurge Putnam, and I'm the Executive Director of Independence House. And I am so thrilled to be here just to chat with you this morning about White Ribbon Day, and specifically the White Ribbon Day campaign. So welcome, it's March, and that's when we celebrate or acknowledge, recognize White Ribbon Day. And I feel so privileged to be able to partner with the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office, the Yarmouth Police Department. And while I feel privileged, it's really the Men's Action group at Independence House that's really spearheading this year's campaign. And I want to give them credit for that. So, what is White Ribbon Day and why are we even doing it anyway? So, what it is, it's a global campaign of men and boys. They're coming together to really take a position to end violence against women. And this year's theme is Unite Men to End Gender Violence. And, we use terms a lot: gender-based violence, domestic violence, intimate partner violence. So I think it's important to give a definition. What exactly is gender-based violence? It's a general term that we use to describe violence that is rooted in exploiting unequal power relationships between genders. So that's a mouthful. What is that? What's an example of that? An example of that would be what we commonly call domestic violence or intimate partner violence. It could be elder abuse, sexual violence, stalking, trafficking. And once we put it in those terms, I think it becomes clear about what exactly are we talking about when we talk about gender-based violence. So what does it mean for men to come together to end violence against women? There are, a lot of things that men can do. And while I'm not here to offer those solutions, I always like to make some suggestions based on what's in the literature. So according to Tony Porter, and if you don't know about Tony Porter, Google him. He has a website called A Call to Men, and I always want to attribute my quotes to him. And what he says on his website, research by the World Health Organization shows that men and boys who subscribe to rigid traditional notions of masculinity are more likely to report having used violence against an intimate partner. So what he says is that intimate partner violence is more often committed by men, and he's not the only one that says that. Research shows that. Therefore, they must be at the forefront in working for solutions. So men and women, men empower themselves when they work to prevent violence against women or end violence against women. And as women, we empower ourselves when we invite men in to do that work alongside us, as we've been doing for many years. So think about this. I leave you with this. Violence against women is a learned behavior. Men's violence is a result of the way many men learn to express their masculinity, and most individual acts of men's violence are an attempt to assert control over others. The result is that women are denied basic rights that most men enjoy: the right to safety in their own homes, the ability to go out at night, a job that is free of harassment. When a woman faces a threat of violence, it usually comes from a man she knows: her boyfriend, husband, father, employer. We live in a society in which words are often used to put women down. We're calling a girl or a woman a bitch, a freak, whore, baby, or dog is common. Such language sends a message that females are less than fully human. When we see women as inferior, it becomes easier to treat them with less respect, disregard their rights, and ignore their well-being. Pop culture perpetuates our ways of thinking and reinforces our gender behaviors. So um, this is not a moment of preaching, but more an invitation to examine your own attitudes and actions and think about how they may perpetuate sexism and violence and work towards changing them. Don't be complacent because you feel you're different than men who feel they have a right to control women. Whether you like it or not, simply by being a man, you benefit from the safety that comes with male privilege. So that's one action that you can take if you're looking at this introduction today. And thank you for your participation, and look forward to our continued work together over the years.
Thank you, Lisetta. I'm pleased to introduce our esteemed panel of first responders, chosen because they exemplify this year's theme, to unite men to end gender-based violence. They're here today to share their own experiences and to continue the discussion about what else we can do to work towards ending violence against women. From the Yarmouth Police Department, we have our School Resource Officer, Nick Pasquarosa, aka Officer Nick as the students call him. From Barnstable Police Department, we have Brian Morrison, officer with the Community Services Unit. And from COMM Fire Department, we have Captain Enrique Arrascue. To moderate our panel today, we have retired Police Chief Peter Carnes. Peter, please get us started with this great discussion today.
Well, thank you, Annie, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I think I owe some thanks to Mike Zontini for volunteering me for this very important role. But in all seriousness, it's an honor to be present and be involved in this project, and also work with such a great group of public safety professionals that really make a difference every day on Cape Cod and within our region. So thank you to all of you for being here, and Annie, thank you for what you do with the Yarmouth Police Department. We have a series of questions which we'll ask the panelists, and we're going to start off. These are first responder questions that quite honestly really get you thinking a little bit about what we do and how we do it and what we see out in our professional life. And also some of these questions touch on our personal life. So if you don't mind, I'll begin with the first question. And that would be, can you think of a time when someone in your life made a comment or referenced harassment or violence against women, and you felt you were not able to speak up or do anything at the moment? That's a very powerful starting question for everybody. And I'll just repeat that quickly. Can you think of a time when someone in your life made a comment or referenced harassment or violence against women, and you felt you were not able to speak up or do anything in the moment? So I think we'll put that out to our group, and we'll open the discussion.
Chief, I'll offer an answer to that. I can't think of a time that I didn't feel like I could speak up. I've certainly been present when people have made remarks, but professionally speaking, as you know, sometimes we use a little bit of dark humor to mitigate our observations of human suffering. And I know that anytime I heard those kinds of remarks, they were born of frustration from our ability to not impact this enough. But with all of the stuff that we've done since I've been on the job, going back to the middle 90s, the late 80s, we made a lot of strides, but I don't know that we've really impacted enough. And we see repeat incidents from time to time that I know that I've had frustration with not being able to solve it. We like to solve these problems, and they are not easily solved. And in the police world, we're very much hit and run until recently with the addition of Annie and our mental health team, where we can do more follow-up. Back in the day when I was on the road, certainly you'd go and you'd take care of the call, and you'd hope that the steps you took would have that impact. And oftentimes they didn't. You'd have to go back again and try again. And so anytime I can think of hearing remarks, I sort of understood that they were born of that frustration. And I never really felt like I was in a position where I should have said something, or felt like I should have said something and couldn't, because I was sort of feeling the same frustration.
Great answer, Nick. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to jump in with a comment?
Yeah, sure, I will. Yeah, that's a wonderful answer, and along the same lines as Officer Nick, as we all know and love him. I can't think of a time in particular myself that I was not able to speak up or do anything in the moment. I've always spoken up and or acted when someone has made a comment or reference harassment of violence against women, or negative comments such. In fact, I often find myself correcting people on comments that they're making or references, especially the job that I'm working now, working in the youth center. dealing with the younger kids. I mean, they're always talking about the music they listen to, and the language that some of the songs that they listen to that really disrespect women. And that's that saying, boys will be boys, but if you don't talk to them at an early age, they're gonna just keep going right on thinking it's okay. Working with the younger population, sometimes, like I said, they get their words and comments from the music, but a lot of times it's from, I deal with a lot of kids who come from single parent homes, and whether it's the mother's boyfriend at the time, and not all of them, but quite often, sometimes the younger kids hear things the way the mother's boyfriend treats them. Sadly, often comments come from either their father, who may not always be in the picture, but when he is in the picture, it's in a negative connotation, and also the older siblings. So I guess I always find myself actively trying to change that narrative, working with the younger people.
Brian, that's a great response, and I particularly like the idea of the thought about capturing younger people, adolescents, and catching them at a younger age to let them know that this is not acceptable. Is there anybody else who wants to jump in before I change the direction of the question just a little bit? Okay, I'm going to ask, bearing in mind the first question, but I'm going to take it a little bit further and drill down and ask if there's a time when this happened and you were able to speak up and change the narrative. So was there a time when you got involved and you were able to speak up and you changed direction, that it went from a situation where there was harassment and all of a sudden you turned it around with your comments or thoughts? Anybody want to jump in on that one? Definitely thought-provoking. I mean, it's, and we would hope any one of us who are on the call here and watching what's going on would be able to stand up and change the narrative and turn that around. And probably using the cliche or whatever, a teachable moment, something that we could really make a difference and take a stand. And when we have people like each of you who are here and the people that are watching the presentation today, you are professionals, you're respectable people, and your voices can be heard. And when your voices are heard, sometimes that is a meaningful opportunity, and it's an appropriate time for your voices to be heard. If you don't mind, I'll jump into the second question. The second question, in your job as a first responder, can you share a time when you had an experience with someone that you felt needed advocacy or support because they were being abused? And I think that's probably a real open question that many of us can jump right into with our experience, whether it's acting as a professional firefighter, as a paramedic, or as a patrol officer in a cruiser going to a domestic violence call. So is there a time that you can share with us that you've experienced with someone that needed or felt that advocacy was important and the support you offered them because they were being abused? I'll throw that out the first question. Second question.
I can answer that, Chief. Or I'll jump in on it. There's been several occasions, working in the high school. Sometimes these things manifest in teen dating relationships, and when they do, I often find that the person being abused is unaware that they are necessarily being abused and is resistant to the assistance that we step in and offer, and which is a time to push a little harder and offering, gently pushing harder to offer that help and make sure that the intervention happens, and engaging parents and guidance counselors and social workers and any other resource that happens to be available and appropriate at the time. The inexperience of the in the dating world that kids have, they don't know what they don't know, might be a way to say it. And when they're in the pot and the water is slowly coming to a boil, by the time it gets to that part and it's too late for the frog to jump out, there's been a couple of occasions where I've gotten there just as the water comes to a boil and intervened And, they don't necessarily like it. That's probably the time when the advocacy's got to come the most. We're looking out for you. You're not seeing it because you're too close to it. Everybody around you is telling you that you're in a bad spot. And the law, for me, the law allows me to act. In some situations requires me to act, which is a great out for the person who's being abused, because society has stepped in to interrupt the cycle of violence, hopefully early, and then we start to coach them up on what a healthy relationship would look like and should look like, and hopefully give them the tools to extract themselves from that willingly, and not just because we're pointing out that it's bad. So, repeatedly that's happened, and it's good to have the tools. And working in the school, I am surrounded by other resources that are non-law enforcement that are friendlier and more gentle than the law sometimes tends to be, and allows me to be. And the police department is now adopting some of those resources in-house, which is a really great asset to have at hand.
Thank you, Nick. Another good answer. And, it's interesting too, part of that question, we think about our roles. We think about as police officers responding to the 911 call, or we think about as fire paramedics responding to the house with a report of an injured woman or whatever, or an injured child. But this could happen Saturday afternoon while you're in the line at Stop and Shop. This can happen while you're, in the parking lot leaving Stop and Shop. I mean, it's amazing how, even though we have a role, we have a defined vocation, we have professional responsibility, every once in a while that overlaps. Every time something like this happens, it may not happen when you are assigned to your shift. So it's more of a open question or open opportunity for you to get involved and make a difference. So if there's nobody else wants to jump in at this point, I'll go to the third question. Can I just take a second and see if anybody wants to jump in, or are we ready for the third question? Okay, our third question for the group.
Chief,
go ahead.
I'll jump in. I don't want to overload the police. I want to give Enrique a chance to speak. So.
Brian is never shy, by the way, if anybody doesn't know that.
So in regards to question number 2, unfortunately, my 26 plus years here as a police officer, there's probably many times that I could share where experience having to help someone that needed advocacy or support. In fact, I'm working with 2 young women currently right now as we speak. So if you see me pick up my phone, that's what I'm doing. Unfortunately, they're having some issues with their partner. But the Barnstable Police has a very strong domestic violence victim advocacy liaison, Jessica J. I'm sure many of you know, just like Yarmouth does with Annie. I mean, and unfortunately, they're very busy, and it's just an unfortunate problem that seems to happen too often. So, yeah, it's definitely still a problem, and like I said, almost daily you could probably have someone that reaches out, and those are the ones that just do reach out. A lot of them don't reach out and are afraid to. So it's important to recognize the signs there too. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Tremendous points, Brian. Very, very much focused on what we're trying to accomplish here. Next question is, in your personal life, can you share an example of a time when you had to speak up against sexist comments or conversations? And if you can describe to us how that felt for you to do that. So once again, in your personal life, if you could share an example of a time when you had to speak up against sexist comments or conversations, and how that felt for you to accomplish that. So I'll throw that out to the group, and our esteemed panelists here will hopefully hear from some of our folks that are standing by with good information for us.
Sure. My name is Enrique. I'm just trying to think of a good example to share, but I guess part of it kind of relates back to, personal life / work as well. As you know, the firehouse, especially the kitchen table, can be one of those places where the coffee table, where a lot of comments and things are shared, especially as generations have changed here, where acceptable conversations are very different than they are today. But certainly sometimes you hear some things, and being a husband and a father of two beautiful girls, I certainly don't appreciate some comments that do get made. And sometimes you got to kind of stick yourself out there and make people know that they're making comments that aren't appropriate. And it can be uncomfortable, but it's the right thing to do. So sometimes you have to do it.
Good response. And, certainly we can all label some of those comments and look at the individuals that are making the comments. And sometimes we step back and say, that might be generational, or it might be somebody coming from a different era, so to speak. I know personally, if I told you how many years I've been in law enforcement, you'd figure out how old I am. But at any rate, I'm now running the police academy. And for years, during modified stress situations, the drill instructors would stop and break down the class and have the joke of the day. And that was designed to calm people down a little bit, or just add a little levity to the training, or kind of adjust their focus to some degree. Well, when I took over the academy 3 years ago, I realized that we're on dangerous ground. If you have somebody come out on their own, a recruit, and give the joke of the day, you just don't know where that's going to go. And it's not one of those situations where you can say, oh, I can put those words back in someone's mouth, or I can stop that once it's out in front of the group. So as a professional, as a person that's concerned about any type of sexual harassment and the potential for, the wrong message coming out, particularly in a police academy class with recruits, I had to stop the joke of the day. And, it's one of those things that it's done for the right reasons. I mean, I don't have a problem with stopping it. It's part of my role to control what's going on, but it's those little examples. And the captain gave a good example of the conversation at the firehouse. I mean, around a table, let me tell you this joke, and the joke gets to a place of dangerous ground where we don't want to be. So we have to be advocates, we have to be strong, and we have to stop that. And regardless of your background, I mean, there are certain things that are right and wrong, and we have to step up. And I know I'm proud of what law enforcement does. I'm proud of what the fire service does, as far as being not only advocates, but stepping up and saying, sometimes with a colleague, sometimes with someone just saying, that's inappropriate. We just don't do that. So those that step up, they have our thanks and our praise. Next question I'm going to throw out, if there's nothing else anybody wants to jump in on. As a first responder, you were seen as a leader in the community, with safety being a significant part of your job. How have you addressed safety when it comes to protecting women and girls in vulnerable situations? So once again, the question is, as a first responder, as you in the community are seen as a leader, with safety being a significant part of your job, how have you addressed safety when it comes to protecting women and girls who are in vulnerable situations? And I throw that out to the group.
Well, we discontinued it because it was very physically taxing, but we used to run the RAD program, Chief. Do you recall that? Rape, Prevention, Defense?
I certainly do.
And I think Barnstable PD is still running it, and we've revisited it from time to time. That was super rewarding for me to do. It was a self-defense program for women. It was very sort of to the point. There was an entire block of instruction on prevention. The best fight that you're ever in is the one you were never at. And how to do all sorts of avoidance techniques and not put yourself in vulnerable positions, or positions that could be vulnerable that you hadn't thought of as vulnerable before. And some very physical, hands-on, this is how you protect yourself. And I would put on the padded suit, and they would beat the crap out of me for about 4 hours in the last night. And like I say, we discontinued that. I was a younger man when we did that. It's a fantastic program. I ran, I don't know, dozens of those for the high school and for the community. It was a lot of fun. The people I met were a lot of fun. And it was like I say, and I know that we had at least one confirmed safe. Somebody's daughter who took the program that I knew personally, and fended off an attacker using the techniques. So there's that. The other thing I would throw out there is that I run a police explorers group, which is surprisingly is mostly female and has been since its inception. I don't know why, but it is. It's disproportionate compared to what the population and demographics of law enforcement is, but that's okay. And what I found is that a lot of people, young women, are looking for father figures because homes are broken, father figures aren't present or not present enough or are inadequate in some cases, and they're looking for some sort of male example. And I know that I have served in that role for a number of young ladies who've come through the high school. And when I find that out, it's a privilege to find out that that's a role I've played, and I'm happy to do it. Part of that is that they, men in a position to serve in that sort of role need to model positive behaviors. My brother-in-law once was explaining to me, he was running a father's group, and he had asked the men, do you date your daughters? Which out of the gate should get your attention. You say, well, that's a weird thing to ask. But what it's really about is taking your daughter out to dinner as a father and demonstrating the behaviors a man should demonstrate to a female companion in that setting. And if a young woman doesn't know what that's supposed to look like, then they oftentimes end up in situations that I described during the previous question, when they're involved and engaged in with somebody who is not treating them with respect and is not treating them well, and is, in the cases that I'm talking about, is physically abusing them. And they haven't been taught that it's supposed to be different. And as Brian pointed out, the media that they're all exposed to is suggesting to them that these behaviors are normal, and they're actually horrific. And they should never be considered normal, but it is what they're exposed to. So if there's not an adult male figure in their life that is demonstrating positivity, that is demonstrating respect and dignity and treating them in those ways, then there is no measuring stick by which that they have to gauge how it's going with them in their relationships. I think in the old days, I seem to recall my mother saying that everybody was trying to date their dad because the dad was the hero. And they were looking for a hero to sort of step in and be as good at least a little bit as good as dad. Those examples just aren't as prevalent as they once were. And I think that if somebody's in a position to provide that, even in my case, it's often by accident, then we should embrace that and do your best to demonstrate these things, because it will make young women safer and more self-reliant, and put them on a stronger foundation to make good decisions about who they associate with moving forward and what they're willing to tolerate in a relationship. Should not be tolerating some of the stuff they're tolerating.
Nick, those are great points. And for the audience watching, when Nick mentioned RAD, R-A-D, it's Rape Aggression Defense. That's the name of the program. And it is an outstanding program for several reasons. One, it gets the young women thinking a little bit about their safety and making good life decisions when they go to the mall, they go to the ATM, anywhere they could be in a vulnerable position. It gives them some knowledge, skills, and ability to get themselves out of that difficulty if it becomes necessary. And I know Nick ran the program when I was in Yarmouth as the chief and did a tremendous job. And in fact, one of the programs was so effective one evening, and I think you're going to remember this, Nick, that a member of our class had a flashback in there to a sexual assault. And just by the general discussion in the lecture presentation of RAD, she had a flashback to when she was sexually assaulted maybe 5 or 10 years earlier. So on one hand, it showed us the effectiveness of the program, that it is getting to where it should be. Second of all, I left Yarmouth and went to Stonehill College as director of public safety. And we did RAD up there for the students. And again, very successful. And when you hear back later about the saves, or a student comes back and says, that program I took 2 years ago. Let me tell you what happened. I was at the ATM and somebody tried to steal my money, and I was able to deal with that. And it's incredible. So, Nick, good points. And anybody else want to jump into that? I know, Brian, you're still doing RAD at Barnstable, right? RAD
Yes.
program?
Unfortunately, we haven't done a class in a little bit of time due to the obvious
COVID. Yeah, understandable.
It is a great class to piggyback on what you just mentioned, what Nick mentioned. Fantastic class. The kids get a lot out of it. And it has, like you mentioned, saved some people in certain situations. Also, as a police officer, our primary mission is keeping everyone safe. And where I primarily work with kids and young adults, as I mentioned earlier, I often speak to them treating each other respectfully, including teaching them, don't call each other names, keep your hands to yourself, and just overall respect each other's personal space. I think the early intervention is key. I also want to mention another thing. I work with the Barnstable Youth Commission, which is run by high school students. And one of their jobs is educating the younger kids, especially at the high school, and even sometimes working with the college kids, just educating them on, social activities and, things going on in society. And one of those things is unhealthy and healthy relationships. And one way we do that is a thing called One Love. I don't know if everybody's heard of that or hasn't heard of that. And what One Love is, it's now a nonprofit organization, but it began as a project. There was a young lady who was murdered at, I think it was Virginia University, by her then boyfriend, Yeardley Love. Very, very sad story. Both promising young people, both star athletes. But he was unfortunately the jealous type and tried to end the relationship. And anyways, unfortunately, he took her life. And it's a sad story. And there's unfortunately a lot of them, whether they, it's an abuse or they end up unfortunately like Yeardley Love did. But what we do is we go into the high schools and to the colleges, and we educate the young people on healthy and unhealthy relationships by showing them videos, and then we have discussions about it. And I gotta tell you, what a unbelievable outpouring of support, and these kids come out of nowhere like, oh, I didn't realize that I was in a relationship like that. Or they see it, whether they see it inside themselves, their friends, or even their peers, they are able to use this tool now that we're bringing to the school to recognize these unhealthy relationships. And, if they need advocacy or support, they know where they can come. And by us, meaning, police and other professionals that bring this to them with the kids, now they know they have avenues. Whether, it doesn't have to be a police officer. They can go to a counselor, a teacher at the school. They can go to, the domestic violence advocate. A lot of kids didn't realize that they had avenues like that. So this is an outstanding program. And, I don't know if you guys do it in Yarmouth yet, but it's well worth the program, and it's very educational.
Great suggestions, Brian. And the other point too, which is probably should be made here, is there isn't just one effort. Okay, there isn't just one program that's the Band-Aid or the quick fix or the miracle cure here. There are multiple programs out there, such as the program Brian pointed out, or even taking basic steps like Nick pointed out, the father taking the daughter out to dinner and just modeling that appropriate behavior and letting, the young lady know that, these are the expectations. These are almost the rules we have to live by. And you should, be looking for this and, making sure that she's safe. The other side of this too is this isn't just delivered in one venue. Okay. This has to be done in schools. It has to be done in churches. It has to be done in any community group. I mean, there's no miracle fix. That's just one way to get it done. I mean, we all have to be strong. We have to stand together. And we have to stand up and say, this behavior is wrong. We're not going to tolerate this, and it's inappropriate. And that's the way we're going to come close to the fix. And I hope we get to a situation to fix it. Is there anybody else? I know we have, you know, a great audience out there of professionals. We have assistant district attorneys. We have plenty of people watching us. And anybody, please feel free to be unmuted and ask a question or comment. Or we're happy you're here. We're happy we drew a good crowd today. And Mike Zontini would probably say that's because I'm the moderator, but I disagree with him. But anyways, if I can get on to the fifth question, if there's nothing else, if nobody wants to jump in. Our theme for this year's White Ribbon campaign is Unite Men to End Gender-Based Violence. What ways can you personally carry out this message at your workplace and at your home? So once again, our theme for this year's White Ribbon Day campaign is to unite men to end gender-based violence. What ways can you personally carry out this message in work, at your workplace and at your home? I think we've had good suggestions from Nick and Brian and Ray, and please jump in, folks. Everybody, it's a question to the audience. It's a question to our esteemed panelists. And what can we do to personally carry this out? And we'd like to hear from you. So let's open it up.
I guess I'll say we can start just by participating in these types of activities and raising awareness to the people we all work with and the people, professional organizations that we're all a part of, and get it out there and let people know that this type of work is being done. You know, obviously from the fire department, we have a very different perspective than what the police do and their involvement with the community. Usually we're just reacting to these calls and coming to them in an effort to get these people to a better place or get them the help they need. But just awareness, knowing these activities are out and available and these resources are there for them.
Great points. Great points, Captain. Thank you. The other thing too, I think there's I don't want to say a misunderstanding, but probably a lack of knowledge of the teamwork that exists between the police and the fire service on this very subject. Because the fire service, the paramedics are coming to the call, they're responding to the injuries. They're seeing some things in the house where, you know, the responding members of the fire service as well as the police look at a household situation and say, hey, there is something wrong here. And we all know about being mandatory reporters and certain steps we have to take in certain situations. And we know about all the forms we have to fill out and make the reports. But sometimes those forms and those reports we make do not get the quick fix. And people have to sit back and say, you know, we have to quickly do something about this. We have to fix it. And that's why resources like Independence House and other groups are so important. And not to mention too, not to underscore the support of the victim witness advocates of the district attorney's office. I mean, we have to all be in unison here. We have to, we're all part of the same team and we all have to work together. And you know, the resource you're thinking of may be okay, but the resource someone else is thinking about might be a more permanent or quicker fix. And Nick alluded earlier about the mandatory arrests and the definite police actions that have to be taken when there's probable cause for injury and things like that. That has made a difference. I mean, I've been in law enforcement long enough to see how we've improved just from that one step. And I recall in the 90s when the mandatory arrest law was coming in for Chapter 209A, that there were models they looked at. And one model was from Minnesota where psychologists went to every domestic call. And they kind of conferred at the scene and tried to make a decision based on mental health issues and things like that. And it was found the most successful one was the arrest, the mandatory arrest. And, you know, it's not a situation where we're going to arrest ourselves out of the problem, but sometimes that arrest has to be made. And it is mandatory that under certain circumstances, the arrest is the preferred response and does have to happen. So in policing, I know in my career, I've seen it get a whole lot better, but we're not there yet. We have a long ways to go. And we have to listen to groups. We have to listen to groups like Independence House. We have to listen to victims. We have to listen to the district attorney's office. we have to listen to our brother and sister officers in the police side and also the fire side to be part of this solution. So I'm going to, Annie, if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of throw this into an open forum right now to hear from our audience, hear from our folks out there that are so patiently watching and listening to this esteemed panel we have. And, you know, it's not Brian, Peter, Andre, and Nick doing all the talking here. So let's jump in, folks, and let's finish up this conversation. It's been meaningful so far. It's been powerful. And I think at the end of this, I think we probably heard a lot of things we already knew about, but we just don't know how to really solve the problem 100%. So I open the door to the members out there watching. You're all in camera. We can see you out there. So we know you have some bright ideas and good thoughts. So let's share them, please.
Hey, Peter, it's Dan Higgins from the DA's office. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dan. Good morning.
I didn't want to interrupt because I know this is a primarily a first responder panel. But as you guys kind of led the discussion towards talking about the victim witness aspect of this thing, as you know, our office, we have a team of usually at any point over 10 victim witness advocates. And, we're seeing people when they're already involved in the system, once that arrest has already been made. And obviously we see a myriad of responses from the cooperative victim to the uncooperative victim. And sometimes they respect where we're coming from, that we have to prosecute the case regardless with other evidence that we have, another witness, excited utterance, et cetera, some physical evidence, medical records. We try and put our foot down and go forward, even if the victim may not want us to, when we look at the person's history that we might know about, not them, or their specific history with that victim, a cycle of domestic violence. And I really can't say enough about the victim witness aspect of this, because if it was just left to the police officers who are on scene or just left to the prosecutor who's handling the trial, there wouldn't be that network of constant support. And it's really been great to see the police department start to get involved in the victim witness program, with Yarmouth and Barnstable both having full-time advocates like Annie. It really is, or was, I should say, a missing component of empowering the domestic violence victims to feel that they have some support and communication with us and an ability to then cooperate and maybe get to a place where they're willing to stand up for themselves.
Great comments, Dan. Thank you. And I think any of us on the law enforcement side and probably a brother from the fire side that's here, we appreciate the victim witness advocates, the good work they do. Now, just I'll throw out to the group, as far as the police training, recruit officer training, which I'm heavily involved in the Commonwealth right now. We are tomorrow taking 62 police officers into a large hangar at Joint Base Cape Cod. And we're going to have scenarios. They're going to be domestic violence scenarios. They're going to be response to child abuse scenarios. And we are going to have role players. These role players, who are the actual role players, are police officers. And they are using their experience from their career to impart that wisdom on these recruits and let them see firsthand how difficult it is to go into a domestic violence situation. And one of the instructors tomorrow is Dave Sneewise from Yarmouth PD, and the other participants, the people in the scenarios, will be alumni from the academy, and there's going to be 12 of them coming back to do this. And voices are raised. There's a lot of maybe might be considered inappropriate language, but the behavior that is modeled is actually what happens in living rooms or bedrooms or locations at 2 or 3 in the morning. And we are preparing in the second week of training. We are training these young men and women who are going to be future police officers on Cape Cod to deal with this. And at a later time, many of you in the audience may not know, but District Attorney Mike O'Keefe brings in several of the ADAs, and they come in and they do not only they get involved in assisting our men and women at the academy with preparing for court, preparing for working with the victim witness advocates, but also we do a moot court situation where actually they prosecute a domestic violence trial with a judge, with an ADA prosecuting, and an ADA is also probably one of the defense attorneys, because we don't have a lot of defense attorneys coming in the academy to participate in that. But we're getting the recruits prepared. So my point is, on the training side, we're starting early with the recruits. We're letting them know week 2 of a 22-week program how important this is. And tomorrow they're going to experience this real time. And many of these 64 recruits have never had anybody yell at them. They've never gone into a challenging situation where there's violence going on, and they'll see that tomorrow. And I had to rent a bigger space to do it. I mean, it was one of those things that we want to get that done. So, Dan, thank you for your comments. I'm going to open it up to anybody else out there. I know we have several people watching that might want to jump in. Our questions that Annie prepared for us are pretty much concluded, but I think at this point, Annie, you might want to do just an open forum, right? So I
Thank you,
welcome any
Peter.
thoughts or ideas.
Hi, Peter. This is Bob Ravenel. I'm over here at Independence House. And
Good
I
morning,
want
Bob.
to first thank you all for being a part of this panel today. This has been something that we really saw as an important program that we wanted to do because you all are out there on the front lines, and really excited to hear about that training because you all are responding to these situations when people, perpetrators are at their worst, and the victims, survivors are in the most vulnerable situation. So we really appreciate you being here talking about that and the work that you do, because we hear repeatedly how those are some of the most dangerous situations for those of you in first responders. I just want to raise the idea as well as we talk about things to do. Here at Independence House, we have Men's Action Group. What we're trying to do is engage men to have conversations about how we can address violence against women and gender-based violence. So what I would say is, for those that are men, for those of you who know men, either by partners or sons or fathers, to encourage them to look into Men's Action, so we can continue to reach out and educate and hopefully do some work before things escalate. Nick was saying some great things that they're doing there as far as identifying, and Brian as well, with working with the younger kids. And that's what we want to do. If we can address these situations before they escalate, if we can tell people how they can address them in a safe situation, then hopefully it limits the need for you all to respond down the road. So I would just ask, is there anything else that you all can think of that if, the powers that be gave you the money and said, hey, you can put in place and put together a program to address this? Is there anything based on your experience that you would say, this is where I would like to really see the money? And it doesn't have to be one thing, because we're giving you a pot of money to do that and the resources necessary.
That's a great question. And, just to add to that question, if you're asked to put together a program to help address gender-based violence, what would you want it to include? What is very important here? What can we do to make it better, stronger, successful? And we know there's not one answer to this, but, I think going back to, Nick's comments about the father-daughter, Brian's comments about getting them when they're younger, getting them in maybe elementary school, middle school, and talking about the issue. And, it's those are huge, huge ideas that I think will certainly help address gender-based violence. So, anybody else out there? Anybody that wants to throw in some comments here? This has been 50 minutes of great dialogue. And I'm really proud to be associated with all of you. You're going, in my opinion, a great direction.
My name is Chris Moran, and I work at Independence House, and I really love the idea of the father taking their daughter out on a date. And I put it in the chat box, but also mothers, sons asking their mothers out, and then be similar how to conduct yourself. I love the idea. It's great.
You know, if we had the giant pot of cash, you'd buy every kid a dad who could teach young boys to be proper men, and you know, teach their young women how they should expect to be treated. It's an impractical answer to the pot of cat, but you know, if I'm a leprechaun, look, I'm probably violated something by saying leprechaun, but if I was the leprechaun at the bottom of the rainbow looking at the pot of gold, every kid gets a dad.
Yeah, no, very important, very important. Role models are the key, and that's another, you know, other thought here besides the role model being the dad going out to dinner, but all of us that are on this panel, I mean, all of us that are watching right now, you have a responsibility to be a role model. You have a responsibility to, you know, step up at the right time and be involved. And I know I can speak for working with Nick for 13 years and working with Brian for a number of years. You guys do it, you get it, but it's, you know, you're few in numbers. We have to increase the numbers. And that's why my push right now is to get these recruit police officers, get them involved early on is their part. And I know the fire service, we have conversations with them regularly. The Cape Fire Chiefs are a great group, and they get it too. And they all want to be partners in this. They just need a little direction as to which way are we heading? How are we going to navigate the next path? And we all have to be part of that. Other
Chief, may-
comments or questions?
Yes, Chief, may I comment briefly?
Yes.
Melissa Altman. Yes. Well, thank you for hosting this. Again, I have a big bias for this. I think this is great work. I just actually went to the Big Brother Big Sister kickoff campaign. They have about 30, I think that it was about 60 boys that they're trying to place with bigs right now. And I do agree that it's a huge thing with role models and having appropriate role models out there. I've been doing a lot of cases recently with guardianship of minors and care and protection, where we have, you know, obviously kids that have either lost one parent or two parents or raised by their grandparents. Those kids need the outreach, the trauma they've seen, you know, whether it's against their mother or their father, but these children we have in our community, they need role models. And, you know, I know a lot of you I've worked with, and I think that this is where it starts, is who they see in our community and the strong individuals who can help out and step up. I work closely with Jessica J over at Barnstable PD. I get a lot of referrals as a family law attorney because we have victims of abuse, mainly females that come to me that have no money and no resources. So I'd ask that you guys reach out to your bar here, the Barnstable Bar Association. We have people on the bar that can assist victims that may need help in the realm of their legal aspect to try to get them back on their feet and to get them empowered so that they can show their children, you know, there is a way out of this. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Good points. Excellent points. Anybody else?
If I could real quick, just in response to Bob's question with if there was a lot of money or a certain amount of money out there. I don't know if anybody's heard of the Ron Burton Training Village out in the western part of the state. I've been trying to do something like that here. Obviously, I'm still working full time, so and it takes a huge commitment and obviously financial commitment too. But I would love to bring a program like that here to the Cape and Highlands even. And the one in Ron Burton Training Village, and they allow people from all over the country, all over the world actually to attend that one. And it's basically a school that teaches both men and women, or boys and girls, core values. And all the way from education, relationships, you know, they even have a course of how to properly, you know, sit at a table and eat your dinner and such. So it's a outstanding program. I've been to it twice to visit it just to get ideas, and you know, they're willing to help start something like that here with me when I finally hopefully get up you know, the time and finances to do it. So it's something hopefully I can do once I leave the realm of law enforcement and, start picking everybody's brain and pocket, so to speak, for the financial aspect. But if you have a chance, look it up online. And if you have another chance to go take a look at it, it's incredible.
Sounds good, Brian. I know they have a connection with Stonehill College. And in fact, also with the Patriots,
Right.
as a former player. And to go back to your last comment, I don't think any of us could imagine Barnstable PD without Brian Morrison. So, I have to say that.
Thank you.
But anyways, hopefully your retirement is not too soon, even
Couple
though we
years.
wish you a good retirement. Okay, I'm going to open it up, open forum here for anybody that's got any comments, and we'll get ready to, I can pass this over to Annie for some closing comments. And again, I can't thank you enough. And it's been an honor and a privilege for me to rub elbows with all of you this morning. And it's exciting work, and thank you for letting me be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you everyone on the panel. I really wanted to be able to have an array of different people here today to just kind of show that in different roles that everyone has, EMTs, firefighters, police officers, that you all show up in different places in the community, of course, in your personal life, but especially in your professional life, and that I see every day in both the police and fire departments in Yarmouth how people are interacting with victims of violence and how they're supporting them in a lot of ways. Of course, they get referred to different places like Independence House as well as myself, but also just how each of you is showing up and how you're responding to these people in the moment at the scene, which can be very difficult for each of them, that you're really making a difference. So I was really happy to have all of you here today. I want to thank everyone for attending. And I also want to say thank you to our White Ribbon Day Planning Committee, which includes Bob, Don, Chris, Katie, Donna, and Sergey. And again, to our panelists and our moderator, thank you all for being here today. If anyone on this call would like to attend another panel, we're hosting 2 more this month. On March 7th is our faith-based panel at 6:30 p.m. And on March 24th, our education-based panel is at 2:30 p.m. Those are also both on Zoom. Our men's action group will be in person at the Cultural Center in South Yarmouth, also on March 24th at 6 p.m. So again, thank you all for being here today, and we'll be here if you have any more questions, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.